Right,
Hi
yeah,
everyone.
otherwise.
I think Aaron's let you in. I hope Aaron's let you in. Welcome to our latest session at Local Gov Drupal Week 2025. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Tim. I'm the comms lead at Local Gov Drupal. This session's entitled Training and Support for Microsites Using Devolved Authorship. Thanks to Graham from Sheffield City Council for running the session. He's going to be ably assisted by Akeem and Phoebe, so thanks to them as well. We'd like to take this opportunity to thank our event sponsors, Anatech, who currently hold the development contract with Local Gov Drupal, Agile Collective, our previous dev team through the alpha and beta phases, who now hold our support and hosting contract, and Big Blue Door, who are currently sponsoring Mark Conroy to work on the platform, as well as Local Gov Drupal Week. So thanks to them. Thanks also to all our council and supplier subscribers and all our supporting partners who've contributed so much to the project. Without them, events like this, sessions like this wouldn't be possible. So thank you. For those who aren't used to using Zoom, a little bit of Zoom help, you can decide on how to view the meeting by clicking View, which will be in the top right of your screen. Please add any questions in the chat. You should be able to find the chat at the bottom of your screen. We are recording the session, so please do mute your audio. And if you don't want to be on camera, please turn your cameras off. Thanks very much. I'll now hand you over to Graham, who will be running the session. So thank you, Graham. Over to you.
Thanks, Tim, and hi everyone. Um, I'll start just by introducing us. So yeah, as Tim said, I'm joined by my colleagues Akeem and Phoebe as well. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Graham Booth. I work for Sheffield City Council as an information systems specialist. We've all got the same boring job title in our team, but my bit is UX, and I've got responsibility for most of the microsites within the team, designing, building, talking to the services about what they require from them. Akeem, do you want to say hello quickly?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Akeem Baligan. Similar to Graham, I'm an information systems specialist, but I focus more on the content side of things, and I help manage the content team.
And Phoebe, quickly.
Hi, I'm a marketing officer. I work for the Employment and Skills Service at Sheffield City Council.
And so Phoebe is one of our devolved authors in question here. So what we're going to do, I'm going to kind of split the session into three. For the first bit, I'm going to kind of set the scene, talk about what the process we've had for microsites is and the problems that we've faced and what we've done to try and address that. Then I'm going to hand over to Akeem and Phoebe, who are going to have a bit of a chat about how that's worked in practice for them, with Akeem sort of having oversight over content and Phoebe being a devolved author putting content on there. And then we want to leave time for Q&As as well, because I know everyone's always got lots of questions about microsites. So we're going to try and keep each bit to sort of 10 to 15 minutes. So I'm going to go quite quickly through the scene setting bit. But this is our approach to microsites at the moment. We have got 13 live microsites with 3 more in progress. They're mainly static sites, so they're for programs or campaigns, usually things that are externally funded or have their own kind of branding and identity that's unique and really important to that program or campaign. Some of them go across other local authorities as well. Some of them are South Yorkshire wide, where there are 4 local authorities in South Yorkshire, where Sheffield's like the lead local authority on it, and we've hosted the microsite. In terms of the functionality on there, we've got news or blogs as it's called in there, events and basic contact forms enabled and working well. We're working on directories as well. It needed a bit of styling to sort of get where we wanted it. So we've not got that on any of the sites yet. We're still working on that. For our theme, we developed a custom theme from the out-of-the-box product, and that theme is kind of consistent across all the microsites. There are differences depending on like who's designed them and who they're for, but there is a kind of like consistency in that theme that works for us. And we have hosting and support from Big Blue Door. Big Blue Door helped us develop that custom theme as well. So our model at the moment for Microsites is that a request for a new site comes from our comms service. They will decide whether there's a case for them to have that microsite, and it's based on things like who's going to be maintaining it, what the campaign is, and sort of whether it needs to be separate from the main website, whether it's got its own identity, its own branding, and things like that. If we then take on the job, the service will provide the content and the structure that they want for the microsite. We'll usually design, build, and populate the full site, although sometimes some of them are sort of jointly owned with comms and the service, and comms will have a bit more to do with the building and populating of it. We train the service and we hand it over when the site goes public. The service then keeps the site up to date, but if they want larger changes to it, like new features adding, or like an overhaul of the design, then we would ask that to come through our IT request process. Some of the problems that we've faced with this model are, I think they're ones that lots of people will have seen if you're using microsites or any kind of devolved authorship. So often with the quality of the content and the time we're waiting for it, and the images as well, like poor quality images. Often once we've handed over, we have an issue with like the site's not meeting the accessibility standards that we legally have to meet. We have had some issues sometimes in that services are expecting more from their sites than the functionality allows. Like maybe they kind of see all these big fancy private sector websites, bells and whistles, and want that in their microsite, and we can't do that. It is a simple product. The requests for help were at one point becoming a real drain on our team's time after handover, so we needed to address that. And then also because we hadn't got our sort of the way we trained consistent, there were different levels of training and different levels of competency in the services that we needed to address. So our solution to that was to have a review of our internal processes. So with that, we needed to kind of strip things back and keep it simple and rethink our approach to that. Sort of think about who has them, what they are for, which users are added to that, kind of combat that problem of some of them where maybe the services were wanting a bit more than actually what a microsite was capable of. And part of doing that was working closer with comms and our business relationship managers within the digital service in the council, on like the communications around what a microsite is and when it's needed and when we should be doing it. We did, as part of that, agree that digital services team that we're in made the final decision on whether we take on the microsite job, because we were the one doing that work and building it. And we agreed an SLA with our IT team as well for setting up the URLs. When we took on the job, as part of that, we introduced an initial assessment process. So I put together like a template with questions in, and we would go through that, and we would sit down with whoever the owner is in the service, and if they were going to have someone editing the content as well, preferably them there, and go through a list of questions and kind of find out everything we needed to know from the site. So there was none of that coming up later on that was a surprise. It was all logged and recorded in one place that we could share with them and then refer back to. We involved the team and the content team from the start to keep in contact them, and that helped introduce the concepts of content standards and readability from the start. Helped like embed that, and we clarified the standards required for images. We did say as well that if services want major changes and new functionality to their site, that was where we decided they needed to put that in through the IT portal, so we could work with them on that, and they could be triaged and assigned and put in with other jobs on the team. We introduced some new documentation, so we created guides to accessibility, a guide for images and a guide for writing for the web, and they're shared before the work starts and helps influence the initial content that's sent to us. And then we created step-by-step guides for the technical side of things, for the common tasks of adding blog posts, adding events, basic edits to pages, because they were the things that most of the authors are doing in there, rather than building whole new pages from scratch or restructuring the website. We created a guide to all the different components and when we'd expect them to be used. And all of this was tailored to our version of microsites. And we share them with all the editors in a shared folder as PDFs at the moment. Akeem and I developed a new training session, and we made that training session mandatory before users were added to the site. And it's a mix of theory and practical, so we wanted to find a balance. As part of that, we sort of tell people why we use local gov Drupal and what advantages it brings to us. We give them a grounding in accessibility and content standards, and sort of try and bring that to life and show why it's important. And we give users in there a chance to create a test page and get used to using the CMS and ask us any questions while they're doing that. Because a lot of people didn't have that kind of full package of training because it's kind of like slowly evolved. We now do sort of, I think they're bi-monthly, but we haven't really sort of settled into a proper rhythm yet. But open sessions so that people can come along and do a refresher if they need to. Um, we introduced a period of early life support. So Akeem would create a Teams group for people to check their content with us before editing it, or they could leave it unpublished and we could check through that and check that it was okay for the first few weeks. And we'd support them with queries and edits during that period. And instead of having that as a set period of time, we would move them off that when we know that they're confident in what they're doing and when we're happy with that. And that'd be a mutual decision between us of when they'd come out of that early life support. A big thing we did that stopped everything being such a drain on our time was the drop-ins. So we've introduced fortnightly drop-in sessions. We have a room in our office, a nice big sort of boardroom style room that we can use for that, but most people actually join online. Um, and we make sure there's one member of staff from the sort of UX and more technical side and one from content in there so that whatever questions come in, we've got an expert in that. Most people, to be honest, come with troubleshooting issues, which was what was becoming a big drain on my time before we had the drop-ins, because people constantly messaging me on Teams and saying like, oh, how do I do this in my microsite? Why is this not working? But now if we try and keep that to the drop-ins when they're out of the early life support. And that means there's time each fortnight in my diary that's set aside to deal with those issues rather than getting in the way of other work. And then the last thing was around improving communications, which I think actually is still a bit of a work in progress. And we're just trying to do like regular updates to authors on what we've been doing to improve the platform and remind people that we are working on it to make it a better experience for them, try and keep it two-way. We do encourage people to report bugs or make suggestions for improvements. And we try and build a relationship with the services and earn their trust and so that they kind of have confidence in our opinions on things like this. So I'll give I'm going to do 3 very short case studies on some of the microsites we have done before I hand over to Akeem and Phoebe to talk about Phoebe's microsite. And I've chosen these 3 because they're kind of in order and they're ones that have influenced some of the changes that we've made to our model. So the first one was lifelong learning and skills, which is for it's sort of post-16 and family and adult education and apprenticeship service within the council. And that was, I think it was the first microsite that was handed to us, but wasn't necessarily the first one that was finished. It was when we handed it over to the service, we noticed there were a lot of accessibility errors in the content. When I did a check through, I found quite a few things wrong, like lack of headings in the heading structure wasn't right, the semantic headings, and there were issues with like the alt text and the images and things. It turned out that there was one person writing the content and then another one adding content to the site. It was being sent to them in a Word document, and the editor was copying and pasting that from Word and not putting in the headings and stylings and things. But rather than single that one person out, I went through the service manager and we arranged some refresher training on accessibility for the whole team. And I think because of the nature of the service, because they're doing send education in the community, they've got a lot of people who don't have English as their first language. I think when they sort of actually got into that, the accessibility and the readability, they realized how important that was for their users. They really got it on board and they changed the way they were doing things. We sort of gave them the practical tips on how, saying like don't just copy it from Word, do look at the headings and things in CMS when you're doing it. And I think for me, that was one that highlighted how important the training was for both the people writing and editing the content. So thinking about things both in terms of the theory and doing it in practice. And that's when we started developing the new training session, and a lot of the new training and documentation came out of that, because I actually did them a step-by-step guide in the first instance to help them out.
Just to quickly jump in, I think at that stage initially the content team weren't really brought in at the very beginning. I think it was more
No.
sort of mids. So I think the experiences from that led to us bringing in the content team, very early on before we added the content to the website.
Yeah, I think I'd added a lot of content in myself, and obviously that's not my area of expertise in editing the content necessarily. The next one I've chosen is Care Academy. So that was for adult social care in Sheffield. It was one of the biggest microsites we've worked on. And to be honest, it was getting really hard work, and requests were getting unwieldy. There was lots of requests for support, lots of confusing messages from different people within the team. And there was a really low number of visitors compared to the amount of work that they and we were putting into it. When the service were making their own edits, they were getting confused by what components to use, and they were struggling with structuring the pages. Interestingly, they had a job vacancies page. You can still see it there in the heading, actually, still titled that. That had an extremely high bounce rate. Hundreds of people were coming to that and then going away straight away. And it turned out the page was coming up in Google searches when you search for jobs, social care jobs in Sheffield. And actually, there's no actual vacancies on there. It was more information about where to go. So we got them to think about that page and who it was for, why people might visit it, start putting users first. They're actually restructuring all the content for that page now, and we're working with them on it. They did some user research of their own, and they wanted lots of changes and new features, some of which weren't possible in the Microsite platform. So again, we stripped things back, and we encouraged a single point of contact, which we have now on there, because I was getting confused with all the different people and what they're asking for. We asked for day-to-day queries to come in through with drop-ins, and any kind of major changes to the structure they want, like this job vacancies page they're working on now, to come in as a ticket for our IT portal, so that we could pick that up and triage it and support it within our capacity and when it suits us. And I think for me, that's the one that kind of helped inform our new processes in terms of how we support on an ongoing basis. And they attend the drop-ins, I think, more than anyone else. And sometimes I feel like it's time that's put aside for a care academy, because we'll always have someone from there in. But it means that my time is set aside each fortnight for doing that, rather than having these kind of requests coming through ad hoc and throwing me off what I'm working on. And then the final one was local area committees, and this is I don't know if other councils have this, but it's where the council is split up into 7 different areas for voting on things on a committee basis, rather than the other way of doing it, which I think is where you have different committees for different kind of issues. The site for that means that there's a lot of editors on there who are community workers. They're based out in the community. They're good at the face-to-face stuff. They're doing a lot of their promo by social media, but they're not used to sort of writing for the web and doing things for the web. They've done a lot of posters in Canva that are kind of like look really nice, but have loads of text in the images and things like that. And they have lots of new images from when they've been out doing activities that they want on their site. And they were just putting a lot of things on there that kind of were breaking those accessibility rules. We had one editor who wanted to put a flick book on there with a report, which really didn't work at all. And I think I found with them the best tactic was, rather than kind of just saying, like, flying off the handle, I mean, like, you can't do this. It's not accessible. We kind of warned them of the mistakes they might be making and explained kind of the other benefits of accessibility. So again, the kind of like having lots of people who don't speak English in their areas as a first language, and being able to say, like, well, it affects your translation as well, and just sort of giving them options that would work better for them. So for example, with the booklet, the Flick booklet, like, it might be better as an accessibility checked PDF that you can upload there, that people can then download if you want that. And we've got them to come to the drop-ins as well, and again, kind of build that trust and have those open communication with them.
One of the greatest challenges with the local area committees was that you had people using other platforms before that. They were using WordPress, they were using Have Your Say, and bringing everyone together and to use one platform, I think that was a bit of a challenge. I think there might be one or two WordPress sites we need to take down, but it was Graham's not really touched on it, but it was a bit of a slog. It did take a long time for that microsite to. I'm quite proud of it, but it took a while for it to come together, and there's still some bits for me to work on with it. But I mean, compared to how it was before, I mean, it's a massive change. It's a massive improvement.
It's essentially 7 different, well, 8, because you've got the environmental toolkit in there, which is kind of across all 7 areas. But so 7 different sites in one with 7 different teams working on it and trying to get that consistency across all of them. It was kind of, we had to really sort of say to them, like, kind of, we've designed your pages as requested by the head of your service in this style, and then you've got your bits that we've devolved out to you that you can change and make your own, but you can't be touching the, like the I guess is like a mini homepage for each of the 7 areas. Yeah, that was still a work in progress, that one, as Akeem says.
The group chat that I've got for local area committees is at least 15 people in it, so it's massive. Yeah.
Sorry, I have gone on a little bit longer than I hoped. I think that kind of often happens, doesn't it? Sorry about that. But I want to hand over to Akeem and Phoebe then to talk about Pathways to Work, which is one of our newest microsites. I think it's probably the one that I'm most proud of that I've worked on, and I think like Phoebe's the first person that's come in and done the whole site under the new processes with us, so benefited from that kind of assessment process, speaking with Akeem about the content from the start, and then having the full training. So I thought we'd hand over to them two and have a little bit of a chat about how that's worked in practice. So I might stop screen sharing at this point.
I mean, you could leave some of the sides up, or unless people want to see our faces.
No, people want to see your faces, don't they?
That's fine. We'll let him. I can't see Phoebe on my screen. Let me. Actually got a camera on.
Have you? I think you just need to slide across. I don't know what view you've got though.
Oh no, I've got you now. There you are. Okay.
So yeah, I guess just to introduce myself. So I'm Phoebe and I work as a marketing officer. I've been working for the council in a comms related role for 6 years now. So previously, I did about 3 years in the central comms service, who you guys work closely with. So I think me having that background in content, it was helpful. And now I work for the Employment and Skills Service as their marketing person. So I had experience with content management systems before. I did previously do journalism, but every content management system is different. Some are more flexible than others. I found that this one was a more flexible one. So that was quite exciting because in the past, all we had was, Sheffield City Council gives you a page and that page just has like a drop down of an overview of information of my projects that we have. And then a call to action, call us on this number, email us. And so we didn't have the flexibility we needed because we did have news stories. So what we ended up having was a WordPress website. So I was putting news on that one. Then I was going on 3 different Padlets. So if you don't know what a Padlet is, I'm sure you do though. It's like a digital notice board where we kept all our up-to-date information. So things like dates for events or courses that we were running. But then that meant that we were directing people to loads of different places. And so the other thing as well about the council website, just the main page we have, is every time I wanted to change something, I would have to request it through our IT help desk, which would come to this digital team here. And then you would kind of change it for me. But, there's always like a wait. And if you want something changing really quickly, it was just a lot of back and forth. So as soon as this came in, it was a really good chance to like consolidate all our bitty websites into one. So yeah. I don't know if Akeem wants to ask me anything at this point.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was wondering if you could.
Sorry, I just launched into it.
Wait, so I mean, how did you find using microsites in Drupal compared to some of the other CMSs that you used in the past? Obviously, I know you had me and Graham helping out, and you had me kind of on call if you want. But How was that? Once you're using it independently, how did it compare to
Yeah, I just found that other CMSs that I've had, sometimes they've kind of gone, you can't touch these sections, but you can do the news. It was kind of nice that you trusted us to have a certain amount of flexibility and change the main information, for example, like the about pages and stuff like that. But obviously, respect what you guys like, the structure and the fact it's got to be uniform across all council microsites. So I think as long as people kind of respect it, but it's good that, you know, in the early stages, I would put something on, I'd send it to you and you'd go, oh yeah, that's fine. So yeah, I think it's the right level of like structure and flexibility, because you've got this kind of structure to work within, which is quite intuitive mostly. There's like the odd thing that I'm like, oh, I'm not sure how to do that. But I think it's quite intuitive, actually. I think it's quite easy once you've done a few posts on it.
Yeah, and I think that's the general feedback for people who use some of the microsites. When I talk to people who work on Alex, for example, I think once they're into it and have got an idea of how to use it, it's quite smooth. I mean, like Graham said in the training, they can't do everything, but once you know what you're doing, you can pretty much, navigate them independently. But how did you find me and Graham's training kind of initially? Because I think in that session there weren't too many of you. Some sessions that we have that me and Graham have done, it's like teaching
Yeah.
a football squad. There's loads of people, but when we were doing training with Phoebe, I think it might have just been you and maybe a couple of other people, maybe one more person. So I mean, but how did you find the resources we had and what we
I
were
think
talking
you were
about?
wise to, I think you were wise to make it like a small group of people so that you could like help each of us when we're like, sorry, what have you pressed there? You know, I think it's good that you did it in person. Like, I think in person training's like a lot more is important, and you had your big screen in front of us, so that was really handy. So definitely doing in person training was great. I like that you had a PowerPoint at the start where you kind of explained the background and a bit about local Gov Drupal. So that was good to know kind of where this had come from. And then a bit about why accessibility is important. A lot of people, you know, that are using these are not comms professionals. So I think it was important that you touched on like, this is the content that's appropriate, you know, and this is like the do's and don'ts. And for me, I was like, well, yeah, I kind of know this, but it was good to go over it again and refresh my training on comms anyway. So that was good. And then also, obviously, the practical element of each of us being able to practice on our own websites. And I think what was most important was that sometimes I leave training and then it all falls out my head. So the fact that you were very like, don't be shy about getting in touch with us, and the drop-ins. Unfortunately, the drop-ins always seem to fall on a day when I'm not working, but you guys have been really good. Like, I've managed to, like, the step-by-step guides that you've created, like each one is about a different part. So it's like, this is how you do pages and this is how you do news or blogs, you know. So I think all of those things combined, like, because you've got to bear in mind that like people learn in different ways, and you guys as well could get a bit like, and this happens a lot at the council, you forget that you're in your council bubble or your tech bubble, and that other people don't know the same level as you guys know. So I think what I appreciated is that you were good at explaining things in layman's terms. It didn't get too techy. It's all felt quite, you know, you're very clear at communicating. You know?
I think that's something that's been quite gradual, because even outside of the microsites and before I started working on them, I've done a lot of training with people just around using Drupal in general. And I did find that doing initial sessions in person, that it sort of saved me time. And also, and like Phoebe mentioned, there are people who have never used the CMS before. And there are some people, I don't even want to say people are reluctant to use it, but it might be in a service where it's been thrown onto them and the rest of their job is 95% nothing to do with the website or anything like that. But it's now their responsibility to look after it. And once I kind of figured that out, and I said this to Graham as well, after so many microsite sessions, is that if we initially try and bring them in as kind of smoothly as possible, try and, hold their hands for as long as we can before letting them sort of, just fly off and do whatever they want. We just found people just a bit more responsive about it, a bit more, appreciative about it, because we kind of understand that, look, this is something new to you. There's other things in your job that you have to do. Not everyone's from like a content or comms background. And I think taking all of that into consideration is why we do things. The initial sessions in person, why we've got the guides, just to try and cover as broad a scope as possible. Because like Phoebe said, people do pick up microsites and Drupal differently. I mean, there are folks who have all of the guides, they have the presentations, and they'll only just message me when they've got an issue. They won't bother referring to any guide. They won't do anything else. They'll just message me and go, "Okay, I'm stuck there. What do I do?" And that's that's just how they kind of communicate. So in short, we just try and be as accommodating as possible. But I have to mention, not every Drupal user is as thorough as Phoebe. Some folks a lot more light touch of it. Some folks make a lot more mistakes. Some people, I think Phoebe's one of the better people we have around Devolved Authorship. But no matter what, I think one thing that's worked out really well, like Phoebe said again, is us just encouraging people that if you are stuck on anything, just get in touch in whatever way you want, whether that's phone call, message, email, the drop-in sessions, form request.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, are we on to the Q&A now, Graham, or I've seen
there's been a few questions in the chat that I've picked up while you two were talking. So just go back through and someone was asking, so Oliver Lamb was asking about how much team resource in terms of time and specialisms we put into setting up and maintaining microsites, supporting Devolved Authorship on an ongoing basis. And yeah, I think the answer is probably too much at the moment. For me, I mean, I'm full time, and I think it's probably about half my time that I spend on microsites. It kind of ebbs and flows though, because it depends when you've got the job in, and if there's a deadline, and it can be a lot of work, and then it can go quiet again. And I think it's one of the things that we want to review in the new year, because I think there is a lot of work still that does come back to us. And what I've tried to do with the new processes I put in place is when that work does come back to us, it goes through our IT request system and is triaged like other work and treated like work on the main website and on the intranet. And it can be prioritized and dealt with alongside those jobs, rather than it just being something that eats into mine or anyone else's time. And I think like we've got a whole digital strategy for Sheffield City Council that's 18 months or so in now, that's being implemented, and microsites aren't really part of that. And the main website and the customer journeys and the refresh of that, the online forms, my account that we're working on is a much bigger priority to the council. So I do have to try and find that balance and try and get less of my time spent, I think, on doing microsites. And that's why we want to get these processes better. But I don't feel we're right there yet to say but it's not still taking too much of our time.
I think Graham's involvement will be more than the content team. I think initially, once certain things have been set up, the design and whatnot, the content team might spend maybe in total maybe a week on it. That might be the bulk of what we kind of do if I share the work between myself or some of my colleagues like Eleanor or Rebecca. So Graham definitely puts in more time overall. But once the site's up, we kind of just come in just to make sure things are ticking over, there for support. So it's not too time consuming for us. It's more just that initial period. I've just seen a question there from Ross about the devolved authoring decision. I just want to mention that even before I started, I think devolved authoring was a thing. Before we moved to Drupal, there was a lot more of it, and then when we moved over to Drupal, that pretty much shrank. But now we're in a position, or we want to kind of I'm not sure how to describe it, but we're testing it out almost. With microsites, I think we always want that to be mostly be devolved authoring, but with the main site, it varies. But we're trying to find a balance, and I think how successful we are with training people initially really will determine how much we devolve kind of later on. Because I think if we grab people when they're first using Drupal or the microsites and we train them well, and let them know they can get in touch with us, the results are far better than us just kind of giving them a site and saying, okay, you go, here's a document, figure it out.
I think I'd like to add to that as well, because I think that a lot of the times in councils, we're made to feel like we might do something wrong, like we don't have the freedom we'd like to have, So I think before microsites, people were going, oh, they're going to say no to this anyway. I'm going to go out and build my own website. It was the wild
central services always have that reputation, don't they?
So
people that say no.
Yeah, they were scared you'd say no, so then they'd go off and do their own thing. So I think by then saying, oh, actually, let's control the situation. Let's just say you can have more. I think you've given us freedom, and we've gone, oh, right. So you're letting us do this. I think then it builds that trust, I suppose, and just the quality of the training obviously really helps.
And
Yeah.
you've got your voice, and you're the expert on employment. And I mean, I sort of came from that background anyway, so I think it helped for me. That's one of my favorite sites to work on. But yeah, that's your area of expertise, and you've got your voice on there, and it's right, I think, in that sense that you are looking after it, as long as you've got that kind of training and support for it. And I think like we've come on a bit of a journey to get to that point, and it's one of the reasons I chose you for this session. I think is that I feel like you're the one that's come on at the best point in this.
Yeah, I mean, I've even come from the perspective of being in central comms, where I've had to become an expert in a service that I've never heard of really quickly. And actually, what I like now is that I work within a service where I'm an expert in my service. So it's like a lot of hard work to try and tell you what the service is about. Then you have to go, all right, based on that, I'm going to say this on the website. Yeah, it's a lot of back and forth. So if you can kind of empower us to make the right content and the right decisions, you know, I know not everyone's going to be as take to it as well as I might. So.
I think a lot of people who've had the new training and now, and I think part of the things with the training as well, like getting people in a room and like we do. I mean, it's never going to be the most fun 2 hours that anyone has, but we do try and make it kind of friendly and fun. And I think that's part of, for me, that's part of about building that initial relationship with the person who's going to have that authorship as well. And I think I want to always build a relationship where there's that kind of trust and friendliness with the person who's updating it, so they feel like they can ask. And I think that's what I've appreciated from you, Phoebe, is that you do ask about things before you do them.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point, actually, because when we'd be like, make a change to this website before, it's kind of a faceless person we're throwing it out to, and then someone will pick it up and email us and go, oh, so what do you want this to be? So yeah, it's there's a more, like you say, we've got a good relationship where I don't feel scared to ask you stuff anyway. So that's helpful.
So I hope
Graham,
that
there's another question, guys, in the chat. It's from Caroline. How do you deal with understanding, interpreting analytics data for devolved editors?
Oh, I missed that one. Sorry. Yeah. So we all the Google Analytics for it are under our account, which means we can't. The devolved authors don't have access to that. But if we've been, but that's one of the offers as part of the drop-in, is that they can come along to the drop-in and we can go through the analytics. Can't get my words out. Go through the analytics with them and have a look at that then in the drop-ins. I can also download a PDF report and send it to them.
Yeah, or they can message us. I think someone's messaged me today actually for some analytics on the microsite. So yeah, they can just get in touch if they want to, and they can raise a ticket as well too, and we can see Dan Shields has got his hand up. Do you want to ask a question, Dan? Or has he put that by accident?
No, sorry. I'm here. Just pressing the wrong buttons. This has been really interesting because we've faced exactly the same issues at Westmoreland and Furness Council, which is where I am, and we're a new unitary. So we definitely inherited this landscape of microsites that had been sort of sent out into the wilderness and then left to sort of survive or die. And so we've done a lot of the same things as you guys have, and it's been really great. Some of the issues that we worked on was who has control, right? Is it comms or is it us, the web team, that control this stuff? We introduced a really robust qualification process for these sites, and we share that on our website actually. One thing that we found was really useful was joint production, right? So we actually use a kind of agile approach to producing the sites, and we bring the kind of stakeholders into that process, and it sort of helps us develop really good sort of working relationships with those teams as we go through. So we found that quite helpful. And then we do an ongoing support thing. So members of our team have sites allocated to them, and they monitor the QA and all that around them, and support the sort of devolved editors to maintain that sort of quality and accessibility of the site. So sounds like we've been dealing with quite a lot of the same things, and it's been really good to see the kind of things that you've been doing, that we might nick some of your ideas to help us,
Yeah.
especially around the drop-ins, which we'd really wanted to do. We just maybe don't have the capacity for that.
Well, I think
Which,
the drop it. We had a member of staff come over from one of the big universities in Sheffield and said that he'd done that there in his job, and so we thought, well, we'll adopt that here. And yeah, it's a bit of a mix. I mean, like Phoebe said, sometimes they fall on days that she's not working. We put them in alternating Thursdays and Fridays, and we did that because we thought, and we know a lot of people don't work Fridays, but also a lot of the people that do, we find that they do a lot of their they have that as their admin day. This is when I'm going to sit down and deal with the website. And so we did put Friday in as well as one of them, but actually I found Friday attendance hasn't been that great, so I might review that in the new year.
They're hard to manage, aren't they? In one of the district councils that made up our new unitary authority, we did have a devolved web editor model more broadly, and we did all that drop-in training stuff, but it's a big job. It's a big job to
Yeah, I mean, if no one turns up, it's usually just me and Akeem sat in a room getting on with our emails and stuff.
Great.
So
Yeah.
we'll use that as our
Have
admin
a good
time if
cup
no
of
one
tea.
turns up. But I think I've only had one where no one turned up, actually. There's usually at least one or two.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, if you want to, I know a couple of people in the chat have asked about me sharing the assessment document, which I'm happy to do. If people want to put their emails in the chat, I can send that over. Also, if anyone wants to see the other guides that we've done, I would at some point. I think
you mentioned, Graham, that we have the drop-ins, and obviously people can get in touch with us whenever they want, and they can also raise a ticket. But we also made a Viva Engage account, that sort of like a social sort of account and a group for microsites, and no one's really engaged with that. So maybe there is we are kind of learning to bring things in a bit and maybe not do too much, if you know what I mean. Because maybe what we do, the drop-ins and people getting in touch with us is just enough.
It might be good if you could share, like, we could maybe even run like a follow-on to this session at the next Microsites drop-in, and maybe you could share a little bit, some more of the training materials and documents that you've got, because I think other councils would definitely be interested in those.
Yeah. Yeah, we're happy to share stuff. I do want to, before I send anything out, I do want to just go through them and check there's nothing in there I shouldn't be sharing. It suddenly occurred to me yesterday, actually, yeah, people are going to ask to see these, aren't they? Like, so yeah, I'll do that, and we're happy to share.
That's amazing, thank you. We've got two more questions. It would be great if you could have a pop at answering them very quickly, because we're now at time. So
yeah, sorry.
But if you could answer them quickly, that would be amazing. The first one is: do you check how if adding more microsites is adding to complexity for residents and content management journeys on the main website? Alternatively, are there benefits I can't see to this adding more sites to the ecosystem for users and or your main web team?
I think it's something that's checked when comms do the initial approval. So there's a system, it's called Panacea. I don't know if other councils use that or something similar, where the service puts in the request for what they want through that, and the council, the comms team will review it and decide whether it's something that, if there is an advantage to having that on the website, or if it is going to like add complexity. We're not involved in that part of the decision. That's comms
But we do
that.
know that we don't the information that you find on a microsite, we don't duplicate that on the main site. So
that's true.
we are kind of taking information off the main site and it being on the microsite. And often with microsites, that information was already out there, but in a far poorer sort of setting. It might have been a crap. I mean, WordPress isn't crap. I mean, the site might have looked a bit crap. It might be poor looking, have your say. So I think I'm not sure if you mentioned, Graham, but with the breastfeeding South Yorkshire, for example, we did a lot of user testing around that.
Yeah.
And I think there's been a benefit. It's definitely a benefit that particularly, a set of people, that microsite sort of being there. So I think the user testing we do around the microsites in general is what kind of ensures that it's not that it's beneficial to everyone.
Yeah, and we have turned sites down as well. Like comms have turned them down, or sometimes comms have approved them and sent them to us, and we've said no, we're not doing that.
Just to add as well, like it's confusing, I suppose, because we're called the Employment and Skills Service, but we actually have the name Opportunity Sheffield. So we've had a little bit of a tricky thing with that, where the main council site wants us to be called Employment and Skills. What's interesting about the microsite is it's more like campaign focused, I suppose, or more like project focused, because our funding is called Pathways to Work. So I think this is our way of hopefully smoothing that and explaining that a little bit more. I hope we haven't confused our audience even more, but Pathways to Work is kind of like
it's a confusing world, the world of employment and skills.
and it's run by Opportunity Sheffield, so hopefully we've managed to clarify that. I think you guys have helped us like clarify those messages and those umbrella terms, I hope, but we'll see when we look at our analytics, I suppose.
And a lot of our microsites are like third-party ones that have been brought in-house as well, that maybe weren't kind of meeting the standards. And like I think that's been really good for the services that have done that, because first of all they're getting that sheffield.gov.uk URL, which is giving it credibility and making it rank higher in Google, and then secondly they are closer to us rather than kind of like, well, it's saving the council money as well is a big thing, actually forgot that one, but also like in terms of like with that devolved authorship, like before maybe they were having to go out to a provider and get them to do things, whereas now they can make those kind of edits themselves.
Yeah, I think that's an important point, that it is linked to the main council site, and I actually have got a link on our bog standard council site that links to the microsite. So it's just about people going, oh, that's the same thing, and then linking back and forth so that there's no confusion. It is the same service. It's just obviously this page explains a lot more.
I just get you mentioned Simon's question now. I think we might not have the time to address it. Hopefully Simon pops up at another session. But I think Graham can probably say this as well. Some of the issue we've had is that slight separation between comms and digital services or the content team, and that leading to maybe a bit of confusion or how to go about setting microsites up. So I find it interesting that Simon said it's the sitting within comms.
Offline, might be an interesting one to pick up more generally.
Okay.
Yeah. Was there one more question, did you say, Tim? Or do you need to finish?
No, we need to finish now. I'm sorry.
Okay.
If people want to carry on asking questions, they can do that in Slack.
Yeah, I'm on the local gov Slack. Yeah.
Slack channel. I know Graham's on there. I'm not sure if Ricky and Phoebe are, but head over to the Slack channel. So thanks very much, guys, for a great session. Thanks to Akeem, Graham, and Phoebe. Brilliant contributions. Thanks so much for that. Thanks everyone for coming, for your questions and comments. We hope you found it useful. Please give us feedback by responding to the email you receive after the session. Please read the email carefully. It's one that is auto-generated from Luma, and it's quite easy to give us a score of 1 out of 5 if you mean to give us a score of 5 out of 5. So do please check before you click, I would say. I can only apologise for the bad UX on there. Thanks again to our sponsors, Anatech, Agile Collective, and Big Blue Door. There are more sessions this week, so please head over to Luma to register. That's it from us. Hopefully we'll see you again later in the week. Goodbye. Thank you.